nation under aerial attack, a president put to the test.
Today, we've had a national tragedy.
At first, uncertainty.
We don't know where the president is right now.
Then a growing resolve.
They were acts of war. And the commitment of our fathers is now the calling of our time.
He's been tested, but never like he's being tested now.
I can hear you!
His words are at times blunt.
Wanted, dead or alive.
And they are unequivocal.
We will not tire, we will not falter, and we will not fail.
This is how it began.
MSNBC reports. Days of crisis. The Commander-in-Chief. Here is Brian Williams.
Thank you for joining us. September 11th, 2001 changed everything. The attack on the United States that morning ended thousands of lives and thrust this country and the world into an unwelcome, uncertain future. It also changed the way America sees its president and the way the president would come to see himself and his job. George W. Bush came into office in peacetime, but now presides over a nation at war. His narrow election victory had left the country divided, but it became his job to unite a nation in crisis. His priority had been domestic policy, and he was inexperienced on the world stage. But the attack left him no choice. He would have to adjust. He would have to learn and do it quickly and with the whole world watching. September 11th, 2001 changed everything. Over the next hour, a revealing look at how it all began, what George Bush said, and what he did in the crucial hours and days after the attack. We will see how uncertainty turned into resolve, how the president found his voice and his mission, how days of crisis redefined the commander-in-chief. Later, we'll hear from former President Bush and other members of the Bush family. But we begin with a Tuesday morning in Florida.
Hey, just warming up. Come on, stretch.
It is just before sunrise in Sarasota. The president starts this day with a jog. The battle over the Florida election the previous year seems a distant memory. After his jog, a brief exchange with reporters.
How far did you go altogether? 4.5. 4.5 miles? I think so.
And Bush heads back to the hotel for his daily national security briefing. He prepares for the day. In Boston, Newark, and Dulles Airport outside Washington, 4 commercial airliners take off with a total of 19 hijackers on board. At 8:47 a.m., one of those jets crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. 9 a.m., the president is in a classroom of second graders at Emma Booker Elementary School in Sarasota. He's been told of the crash, but in those first moments, it is thought, perhaps hoped, that it had just been a terrible accident. At 9:03 a.m., those hopes are shattered.
Sonny, do you know if there were many people in the building?
Oh, another one just hit. Something else just hit. A very large plane just flew directly over my building, and there's been another collision. Can you see it? I can see it on the shot.
Minutes later, White House Chief of Staff Andy Card whispers in the president's ear, the second tower has been hit. America is under attack. The awful news registers on the president's face as the cameras roll. Unwilling to alarm the children, he patiently remains in the classroom for another 6 minutes, listening to the students while his thoughts are literally miles away.
Mr. President, are you aware of the reports of the plane crash in New York? Is there anything? Talk about it later. Thank you all.
In a holding room at the school, he gets on the phone to Washington. And for the first time, he sees the television pictures that America has been watching live, the burning Twin Towers in New York. At 9:30 a.m., a visibly shaken president makes his first public statement.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand.
Bush immediately leaves for the Sarasota airport. First Lady Laura Bush at this moment is on Capitol Hill, where she had planned to speak on education, but things have changed.
Well, parents need to reassure their children everywhere in our country that they're safe.
But no one feels safe. Just moments before, unbeknownst to Mrs. Bush, a third hijacked airliner crashes, this one into the Pentagon. And a fourth jet is in the air over Pennsylvania, headed for Washington, D.C. In Sarasota, the president arrives at the airport, still on the phone to Washington. At 9:48 a.m., the White House is evacuated. Secret Service agents virtually carry Vice President Cheney to a bomb-proof room in the basement of the White House.
Once I got down into the shelter, the first thing I did, there's a secure phone there. First thing I did was pick up the telephone and call the president again, who was still down in Florida at that point, and strongly urged him to delay his return.
The crisis now enters its second hour. Amid heavy security, President Bush boards Air Force One, which then departs Sarasota at 9:55 a.m. and climbs to high altitude, taking evasive measures once airborne, flying in an erratic pattern. At 9:59, as the president and the nation watch in horror, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. Just minutes later, United Flight 93 crashes in western Pennsylvania after passengers overpower 4 hijackers. The plane had been heading for Washington. At 10:28 a.m. in New York, the North Tower collapses. The World Trade Center, New York's tallest buildings and a powerful symbol of American might, are simply gone. Thousands are buried in the rubble. Lower Manhattan is in chaos. To the south in Washington, part of the Pentagon is in ruins. But George Bush does not return to Washington. The vice president and the Secret Service recommend that the president delay his return for security reasons, and he does not overrule them. Air Force One is diverted. At 11:45 a.m., 3 hours into the crisis, the president arrives at Barksdale Air Force Base outside Shreveport, Louisiana. Security is tight. The president's location remains secret until local news media reports that Air Force One has landed. The military is at DEFCON Delta, the highest possible state of alert, and the scope of the crisis is only beginning to come clear. A grim-faced George Bush makes his second public statement of the crisis.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended. Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts. The resolve of our great nation is being tested. But make no mistake, we will show the world that we will pass this test. God bless.
Bush himself is now also facing a test. His statement, intended to reassure, does not, as administration officials themselves later concede. He leaves Barksdale Air Force Base, but his destination is again kept secret. In fact, a refueled Air Force One flies to Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, arriving at 2:50 p.m. An anxious nation of television viewers has not been told why the president has flown even farther away from Washington, which only adds to the tension. Security remains at the highest possible level. The president is immediately taken to an underground bunker on the base where he conducts a National Security Council meeting by teleconference. When the administration does make its next public statement, it comes not from the president, not the vice president, nor from the White House, long since evacuated. It comes instead from presidential counselor Karen Hughes at a briefing room at FBI headquarters.
Air Force One has now landed at Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska, and the President is in a secure location.
On one of the worst days in American history, the President of the United States is not seen or heard from publicly for more than 6 hours. The White House later says they had reason to believe Air Force One was a possible target, but the administration subsequently backs away from that claim. Just after 4:30 p.m., Bush is heading back, telling aides on board, "I'm not going to let some tin-horn terrorist keep the president out of Washington." Air Force One flies with a fighter jet escort, as it has all day. At 6:55 p.m., 10 hours after the attack on America had gotten underway, George W. Bush is back at the White House. Just a few miles away sits the damaged Pentagon. In lower Manhattan, the scene is one of utter chaos. America wants and needs to hear from its president. Just after 8:30 p.m., Bush speaks to the nation from the Oval Office.
A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
Speaking from the White House that evening, the president seemed to many to be more in command than he had earlier in the day. And his reference to those who harbor terrorists was a sure signal that a sweeping response to the attacks was taking shape. But George W. Bush was just beginning to realize how dramatically things had changed, as we'll see when we continue.
It's a new kind of war. And I understand it's a new kind of war. And this government will adjust.
The ground war is underway.
A shift in U.S. military strategy.
American warplanes are now hitting Taliban front lines.
This is the third confirmed case of inhalation anthrax. Just reported 2 postal workers died.
The Bush administration tries to stop the latest flare-up.
The worst-case scenario here would be civil war.
The Meal on the Go bar from Slim Fast. Balanced nutrition designed to help you manage your weight and your life.
When you have money problems, just going to the mailbox can be frightening. It's the same when the phone rings. You know it's another creditor. I thought bankruptcy was the only way out. And then I called Ameridebt.
Every day, Ameridebt helps more people with money problems. We're a nonprofit organization offering free consultations to consumers seeking to eliminate their debt.
Now my balances are dropping, and I only have one small monthly payment.
Call this number regardless of your situation. Ameridebt, helping America get out of debt.
Somewhere out there, your team is taking the court, and you can be there coast to coast. Now, Sports in Demand brings your team home. With NBA League Pass on digital cable, you can choose from up to 40 out-of-market games a week. Call now to lock in a special low price. You can either fly to a different city every night or pocket the airfare and get NBA League Pass. Don't miss your chance to order this ultimate basketball package. Call now.
America awoke on the morning of September 12th, 2001, still in shock, trying to comprehend the enormity of just what had happened the day before. But the nightmare was real. The World Trade Center, which had towered over lower Manhattan for 30 years, had been brought down. hit by 2 commercial airliners loaded with jet fuel and reduced to rubble with thousands of people still inside. The Pentagon, headquarters to the mightiest military in the world, also hit. And in western Pennsylvania, a crater left by the crash of a 4th commercial jet. Its intended target, perhaps the Capitol or the White House. We later learned that fighter jets had been ordered to shoot it down if it had approached either one. On Wednesday morning, President Bush was at the White House saying what many Americans were already thinking.
The deliberate and deadly attacks which were carried out yesterday against our country were more than acts of terror. They were acts of war. This is an enemy who preys on innocent and unsuspecting people, then runs for cover. But it won't be able to run for cover forever. This is an enemy that tries to hide, but it won't be able to hide forever. This is an enemy that thinks its harbors are safe, but they won't be safe forever. We will rally the world. We will be patient, we'll be focused, and we will be steadfast in our determination. This battle will take time and resolve, but make no mistake about it, we will win.
For the first time since the attack, the president is talking in terms of war. The last president to go to war was also named Bush, and men who served the father now serve the son, including Vice President Dick Cheney and Secretary of State Colin Powell. Late afternoon, the president visits the damaged Pentagon with Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, who the day before had refused to leave the building after it was attacked. Workers unfurl an American flag, just as flags are being displayed everywhere across the country.
Coming here makes me sad on the one hand. It also makes me angry. And our country will, however, not be cowed by terrorists. Good morning, man.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you.
The president makes a telephone call from the Oval Office, speaking to New York Governor Pataki and Mayor Giuliani. Bush offers condolences, support, and the promise of a visit to Ground Zero the next day.
First of all, I can't tell you how sad I am and America is for the people of New York City and the tri-state area. But make no mistake about it, my resolve is steady and strong about winning this war that has been declared on America. It's a new kind of war. And I understand it's a new kind of war. And this government will adjust.
Thank you, Mr. President.
After the phone call, the president takes questions from reporters. Questions like, had he done the right thing the day before in not returning immediately to Washington?
I believe I took the, I know I took the appropriate actions as the Commander-in-Chief to be in a position to be able to make the decisions necessary for our government to handle the crisis.
Then comes a question a little closer to home.
Could you give us a sense as to what kind of prayers you are thinking and where your heart is for yourself as you work on that?
I don't think about myself right now. I think about the families, the children. I'm a loving guy, and I'm also someone, however, who's got a job to do, and I intend to do it.
An emotional George Bush at the White House 2 days now after the attack. In the afternoon, more emotion as the President and First Lady visit hospitalized survivors of the attack at the Pentagon.
Some of the folks could talk, and they described the horror of the incident in the moment. They talked about escaping, going through fire, and crawling through debris. That it's clear that they were fighting for their survival then, and like every patient up there, they're still fighting for their survival. On Tuesday, our country was attacked with deliberate and massive cruelty. We have seen the images of fire and ashes and bent steel.
A national day of prayer and remembrance. The leaders of government gather at Washington's National Cathedral. George W. Bush, not known before this crisis as a particularly gifted public speaker, rises to the occasion.
War has been waged against us by stealth and deceit and murder. This nation is peaceful, but fierce when stirred to anger. This conflict was begun on the timing and terms of others. It will end in a way and at an hour of our choosing. It is said that adversity introduces us to ourselves. This is true of a nation as well. In this trial, we have been reminded, and the world has seen, that our fellow Americans are generous and kind, resourceful and brave. America is a nation full of good fortune, with so much to be grateful for. But we are not spared from suffering. In every generation, the world has produced enemies of human freedom. They have attacked America because we are freedom's home and defender. And the commitment of our fathers is now the calling of our time.
In a small but telling gesture caught by television cameras, Bush's own father shows his admiration for his son, the commander-in-chief. Former Presidents Carter, Ford, and Clinton are also on hand. None of them, in fact, no other president, ever faced anything quite like the crisis now facing this president. In the afternoon, George Bush makes his promised visit to New York City. He is warmly welcomed by Governor Pataki and Mayor Giuliani. Smoke still rises from the ruins of the World Trade Center, a hellish scene first visible from the president's approaching helicopter. On the ground, hundreds of rescue workers have been laboring around the clock, finding no survivors. They need a lift, and the president, who is handed a bullhorn in an unplanned moment, gives them that lift.
I want you all to know that America today is on bended knee in prayer for the people whose lives were lost here, for the workers who work here, for the families who mourn. This nation stands with the good people of New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut as we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens. I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
In that one moment, some would later say it was as if George W. Bush truly became president right then and there, making a connection on a gut level with an audience desperate for reassurance, for leadership. The president was building support across the board, including in Congress, which just that night overwhelmingly authorized the use of force. But George Bush was still learning, and there would be missteps, as we'll see in just a moment.
This crusade, this war on terrorism, is going to take a while.
What's happening in Afghanistan that's making this the toughest battle ever for U.S. Special Forces? Waging War with Forrest Sawyer, tomorrow at 10 on MSNBC.
We're looking at a future, bright with possibilities, for energy and performance, everywhere. Chevron Texaco.
Totino's pizza rolls are so easy, kids can make them on their own. Pepperoni pizza stuffed into a bite-sized roll. Totino's, it's how kids help themselves.
This ordinary-looking bed is the key to a restful night's sleep.
Even though it may look like an ordinary mattress, it's more comfortable than you can ever imagine. Introducing the Nautilus Sleep System. Nautilus uses variable support chambers designed to let you control the comfort on your side of the bed. Individual remote controls allow you to increase or decrease the firmness on your side of the bed, so you can have that feather soft feel and your spouse can get the extra firm support he or she has always wanted. Features like a wool blend pillow top for winter, a silk blend pillow top for summer, and our unique comfort layer make Nautilus the choice for a great night's sleep. It's time you feel the instant comfort of Nautilus with no money down and payments as low as $30 a month. Try Nautilus in your home. We guarantee the best sleep you've had in years. If you're not completely satisfied within 12 weeks, return it for a full refund of the purchase price. Call now for your free video and brochure and discover instant comfort with the Nautilus Sleep System.
TV Music for You presents Once Upon a Song. 34 great story songs by the artists who made them famous.
And it's bad, Leroy Brown. Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say to you.
I learned the truth at 17.
You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name.
Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose.
The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal.
Today, Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon.
Once Upon a Song on 2 cassettes or 2 CDs. This offer is not available in stores, so call now.
I heard my mom.
Call this toll-free number now to order Once Upon a Song. 2 cassettes, $21.99. 2 CDs, $26.99, plus shipping and handling. Have your credit card ready and call now.
This act will not stand. We will find those who did it. We will smoke them out of their holes. We will get them running, and we'll bring them to justice.
At Camp David with his national security team, President Bush has blunt words for the terrorists believed behind the attack. But who are the terrorists? Increasingly, the focus is on the al-Qaeda network and Osama bin Laden.
There is no question he is what we would call a prime suspect. And if he thinks he can hide and run from the United States and our allies, he will be sorely mistaken.
Mr. President, do you have a message for the reservists that you called up yesterday? Can you tell us whether you think more may have to be called?
My message is for everybody who wears the uniform, get ready. The United States will do what it takes to win this war.
Just as the president was using the language of war, he was cautioning the American people that this would not be like past wars. No beaches to storm, no vast armies or navies to target, no quick victory here. His words were changing in another respect. On day one, he had referred to those behind the attacks as folks. Now he was calling them barbarians.
We need to go back to work tomorrow, and we will. But we need to be alert to the fact that that these evildoers still exist. We haven't seen this kind of barbarism in a long period of time. No one could have conceivably imagined suicide bombers burrowing into our society and then emerging all on the same day to fly their aircraft, fly U.S. aircraft, into buildings full of innocent people and show no remorse. And this is a new kind of evil.
Bush is improvising, speaking off the cuff, and he uses a word many will wish he hadn't.
This crusade, this war on terrorism, is going to take a while, and the American people must be patient.
Calling the war on terrorism a crusade was a mistake. It conjured up images of the Crusades of the 11th through 14th centuries when European Christians waged bloody war against Muslims in the Holy Land. This 21st century war was not against Muslims, the administration was quick to point out, but against terrorists and those who support them.
I'm here to remind people that the best way to fight terrorism is to not let terrorism intimidate America.
On the first Monday morning after the attack, the president greets government workers at the executive office building adjacent to the White House.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here.
Later, Bush is welcomed to the Pentagon. At a meeting with Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, the president talks with reporters.
This is a fight for freedom. This is a fight to say to the freedom-loving people of the world, we will not allow ourselves to be terrorized by somebody who thinks they can hit and hide in some cave somewhere.
Mr. President,
I want him held. I want justice. And there's an old poster out west, as I recall, that said "Wanted, dead or alive."
The president's Wild West imagery, though welcomed by many, is also criticized later as ill-advised and inflammatory. It's later reported that even his own father called to suggest he tone down the rhetoric. There is no criticism of what Bush has to say at his next stop this day at the Islamic Center in Washington. A message to Americans and to Muslims around the world.
The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace. These terrorists don't represent peace. They represent evil and war.
Tuesday morning at the White House, 1 week exactly after the attack, and a moment of silence for the thousands of victims. This is the first time since the attack that the president and vice president appear together in public. Later, the president speaks in the Rose Garden.
Last week was a really horrible week for America. But out of our tears and sadness, we saw the best of America as well. We saw a great country rise up to help. The world watches the great country called America, and they say, what will they do? What will Americans do? And what they've seen the best of America. They've seen leadership, they've seen courage, and as importantly, they've seen compassion.
As the president tends to the home front, he also rallies international support, meeting that evening with President Chirac of France.
It's the first formal visit I've had with any world leader since the terrible day a week ago.
In the days that follow, the president, who came to office with little foreign policy experience, meets personally with leaders from Canada, Indonesia, Russia, Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, Japan, Jordan, Mexico, Germany, Italy, and China. And the president, who had shown little affection for official Washington, offers real support in visits to the State Department, the Labor Department, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the FBI, and the CIA. From Congress, leaders of both parties offer praise and support, and the president announces that he will address a special joint session of Congress.
I can't think of a better place than to talk about freedom and the battle to maintain freedom in one of the greatest halls of freedom, and that is in the United States Congress. So thank you for the invitation. I accept wholeheartedly, and I will see you all tomorrow night.
When we come back, the most important speech of the president's life.
Rearrange the living room? Dust behind that chest? How about move that king-size bed? Better get some moving men. No, not those moving men. These moving men. Introducing the moving men. The furniture sliders that make moving even the largest furniture child's play. Just slip a moving man under each leg, and even the heaviest piece slides along effortlessly. Each moving man is made of a highly polished polymer and fitted with a special grip pad for the legs to rest on. Even this loaded bookcase practically floats along. These men can hardly budge this armoire, yet this 90-pound woman can slide it clear across the room. We place this wooden freight skid on 4 moving men with these heavy cinder blocks. It slides along like magic. This couple rearranged their living room in just a few minutes. They even used it to move that big screen TV. And now you don't have to bother your friends just to clean behind the bed. Sliding furniture without the moving men can bunch up and even damage expensive carpeting. The moving men are guaranteed. If they're not the best helpers you've ever had, send them back for a full refund. You get a set of 4 moving men for just $19.99. And if you call right now, we'll double your order. That's 8 moving men for less than $10 a set. But that's not all. We'll also include 8 mini movers. Put them under the washer and dryer, or anything you frequently move for cleaning. Watch, here's one more incredible demo. It could take you hours to move your entertainment system. But why take it apart when you can move it all at once? Order now and get it all. That's 8 jumbo moving men and the 8 mini movers for just $19.99. So stop straining your back and let the moving men professionally move that heavy furniture. Call now.
To order the amazing moving men for only $19.99 plus shipping, have your credit card ready and call 1-800-454-8484 or send check or money order to the address on your screen. Call now.
Sunday on MSNBC's National Geographic Explorer. The stakes are high.
We're the policemen of the Mediterranean.
Precision is critical.
Combat 44 flag, clear deck. We tell airplanes where to move.
And the air boss is the one man in charge of it all.
He's the god of the flight deck.
See what it takes to safely command and control the crew of an aircraft carrier. Air Boss on National Geographic Explorer. Sunday at 8 on MSNBC.
You're watching MSNBC.
MSNBC reports. Days of Crisis. The Commander-in-Chief. Here again is Brian Williams.
Welcome back. A president, a commander-in-chief, leads by the actions he takes, the confidence he shows, the words he chooses. It has become the task of George W. Bush to lead this nation through an unprecedented crisis, and he has been tested. It is useful to remember that FDR had been president for more than 8 years when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. On September 11th, 2001, George Bush had been president for less than 8 months. In the days immediately following, his response to this crisis evolved. His determination grew. There was much he had said already, but he knew he needed to say much more.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
An address to a joint session of Congress. The President and his staff have been working on this speech for days, crafting it, rehearsing it. The television audience is enormous, an estimated 82 million people in the United States, millions more around the world.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom. Our grief has turned to anger, and anger to resolution. Whether we bring our enemies to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be done.
And who is the enemy? The president identifies the al-Qaeda terrorist network led by Osama bin Laden, supported by the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. The president demands of the Taliban turn over the leaders of al-Qaeda, shut down its terrorist network, allow inspection of its camps.
These demands are not open to negotiation or discussion. The Taliban must act and act immediately. They will hand over the terrorists, or they will share in their fate. Our war on terror begins with al-Qaeda, but it does not end there. It will not end until every terrorist group of global reach has been found, stopped, and defeated. They stand against us because we stand in their way. We're not deceived by their pretenses to piety. We have seen their kind before. They are the heirs of all the murderous ideologies of the 20th century. By sacrificing human life to serve their radical visions, by abandoning every value except the will to power, they follow in the path of fascism, Nazism, and totalitarianism. And they will follow that path all the way to where it ends, in history's unmarked grave of discarded lies. Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. Great harm has been done to us. We have suffered great loss. And in our grief and anger, we have found our mission and our moment. Freedom and fear are at war. The advance of human freedom, the great achievement of our time and the great hope of every time, now depends on us. Our nation, this generation, will lift a dark thread of violence from our people and our future. We will rally the world to this cause by our efforts, by our courage. We will not tire, we will not falter, and we will not fail. Each of us will remember what happened that day and to whom it happened. We'll remember the moment the news came, where we were and what we were doing. Some will remember an image of a fire or a story of rescue. Some will carry memories of a face and a voice gone forever. And I will carry this. It is the police shield of a man named George Howard, who died at the World Trade Center trying to save others. It was given to me by his mom, Arlene, as a proud memorial to her son. It is my reminder of lives that ended and a task that does not end. I will not forget the wound to our country and those who inflicted it. I will not yield. I will not rest. I will not relent in waging this struggle for freedom and security for the American people. The course of this conflict is not known, yet its outcome is certain. Freedom and fear, justice and cruelty have always been at war, and we know that God is not neutral between them. In all that lies before us, may God grant us wisdom, and may He watch over the United States of America. Thank you.
In our grief and anger, we have found our mission and our moment. The president was talking about the nation and about himself. The terrorist attack the week before had transformed the country. And with this speech, George W. Bush defined his presidency just as events at first had defined it for him. And where was the president's mother on this important night for her son, keeping a speaking engagement of her own in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania?
I got to hurry tonight because you have a better speaker coming up.
When we come back, Barbara Bush, wife Laura, brother Jeb, and the president's father in just a moment.
He's facing a test that few presidents have faced.
An epic tale of adventure, forbidden romance.
My wife is none of your affair.
And one deadly treasure.
Are you implying they were killed? For what? The diamonds they found?
Billy Zane in Louis L'Amour's The Diamond of Jeru, a USA original movie. Premieres Tuesday, November 6th on USA.
Women want you to believe they have to suffer to stay in shape. But what about Kellogg's Special K? Does that look like suffering to you? Delicious, lightly toasted flakes and only 110 calories? Doesn't sound so bad to me. Maybe it's time for me to do the Special K thing.
Kellogg's Special K. Looking good never tasted so great.
how the race car driver gets to the race car? Seville STS, the fusion of design and technology. Cadillac.
I believe I should get all my calls, even with 2 teenage daughters.
I believe in choosing a local phone company that handles all my calls.
I believe my online time should not interrupt my phone time.
Now you have a choice in local phone service. AT&T Broadband can save you up to 21% on what you may be paying now. So call 877-432-5179 for AT&T Digital Phone Service.
I believe I will.
AT&T Broadband. Believe in it.
Come to the House of Clocks to accessorize your home. They have over 2,001 clocks, including cuckoo clocks, majestic grandfather clocks, and charming mantle clocks. Styles range from traditional to the most modern and contemporary. And warm your home with an electric fireplace. Just plug it in anywhere for instant ambiance. It's all at the House of Clocks on White Bear Avenue between 94 and 694.
You know, it's really impossible to describe what it feels like to have one of your children become a president. That's especially true now. As a mother, I would give anything not to see him have to deal with this terrible time in our history. As an American, I could not be happier to have this very able, wise man in the White House surrounded by a great team.
And George Bush may be surrounded by a great team in the White House, but he would insist his most important team is his family, starting with his wife. Laura Bush is not fond of the limelight, but in the days after September 11th, she made a series of public appearances, among them a memorial service for the victims of United Airlines Flight 93 in Pennsylvania.
A poet wrote, "Love knows not its own depths until the hour of parting." The loved ones we remember today knew, even in those horrible moments, that they were not truly alone because your love was with them. And I want each of you today to know that you are not alone. We cannot ease the pain, but this country stands by you.
Laura Bush herself was potentially in harm's way on the morning of September 11th. She was on Capitol Hill meeting with senators and preparing to speak on education until word of the attack spread.
I was taken to a secure location, and like every parent, I called my children immediately as soon as I could get them to reassure them. And then I called my own mother for the comfort of her voice. I know that people all over the country call their loved ones to reassure them and to send their love to them, and I did that. So I really was never really fearful.
The president's brother, Jeb Bush.
I was afraid for all my family's safety. Clearly, you know, my mom and dad, and obviously my brother and my sister-in-law all are primary targets, but cousins and nephews and my children and my wife, all of them were on my mind.
A president in wartime needs people around him he trusts, people who can give him the best possible counsel. George W. Bush could do no better than to turn to a man who has been there himself, his own father. Tom Brokaw talked to former President Bush shortly after the attacks and asked him how much advice he'd been giving his son.
It's hard for people to understand this. I'm not hovering over the shoulders with advice. I don't have the information to give sound advice anymore. I don't have access to the intelligence that Secretary Powell does, or Vice President Cheney, or Secretary Rumsfeld, or Condi Rice, or the President have. And I learned long ago, you ought not to be giving a lot of opinions unless you know what the hell you're talking about.
But the role of just being a dad is also important in a time
That
like
role I can do, and Barbara can do it well as a mother. We talk to them a lot. And again, it's family, and it's concern of parents, in this instance, for the President of the United States of America. It's hard to describe, Tom. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's not liberal or conservative with us. It's simply a great pride in the President and in the First Lady. And this thing about faith, I mean, this is real for him. This is real. Here's a man that's read the Bible through twice, and it's not to make it holier than thou, or not to make a political point. It's something that is in his heart, and we see it all the time. And yet his mother can still talk to him. George, take your feet off that couch. This summer, I said, Mom, Barr's President of the United States of America. You're telling him to take his feet off? I'm going running, Mother. I don't care. Take those running shoes off my table. I mean, life goes on, and it's family, and it's important.
We were all so touched when, after he finished that memorable speech at the memorial service and sat down next to you, you reached over and put your hand on him in the most reassuring and affectionate way. What did you and Mrs. Bush say to each other after you saw the speech that many people say is one of the very best speeches that has been given in recent memory to Congress and to the nation?
Oh, well, I'm 77, so I'm entitled to shed a few tears. And I got quite emotional at a couple of points. I didn't want to kind of lose it there, but you just have this overwhelming pride in recognizing at the same time, because I have been president, the enormous problems that any president, but in this case because it's our son, faces. This is a huge challenge for the president and for this experienced team he has around him. What I don't agree with is that suddenly this person has found strength. Suddenly this person can lead. He's facing a test that few presidents have faced. But he was a leader. He was a leader in our state for 8 years or 6, whatever it was, as governor of our great state, the second biggest state in the nation. So he's been tested, but never like he's being tested now.
We're going into a very critical period. What is the most important thing this country should know about its president and what's ahead?
And that he's determined, that he is resolute, that he is blessed with a superb, experienced team, and that there is no way to overestimate the importance of that, given the complexity of the problems he faces, and that he'll stay the course, and he'll do it with honor.
Tomorrow on Business Center, it's called cocooning. People staying closer to home for their leisure and entertainment. Which businesses are getting a boost from a renewed interest in creature comforts? Tomorrow on CNBC Business Center at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Surprisingly, many online brokers use very little online technology. They simply send your order to Wall Street, where it's processed the old way. Daytech Online, however, has created powerful technology that lays waste to the old guard. Is your online broker even trading online? Daytech Online, built to trade.
Okay, the coast is clear.
Good. Listen, Teddy, everyone's excited about the new Windows XP, right?
Yeah.
Well, now we get them really fired up. We take XP, we load it onto our 300S. We add a free CD burner, include a flat screen, and we sell it all for $9.99.
$9.99 with a flat screen?
Teddy, did I stutter?
With Daytech Online, most trades are executed in mere seconds. Plus, Daytech pledges to execute your marketable online order within 60 seconds or the commission's waived. Daytech Online, built to trade.
Careful. That's a Zenith digital TV you're looking at. From big to small to flat to thin, you can't escape the power of Zenith Digital.
If all online brokers execute orders the same, how come only one offers a 60-second execution commitment? Find out more at daytech.com. Daytech Online. Built to trade.
What's happening in Afghanistan that's making this the toughest battle ever for U.S. Special Forces? Waging War with Forrest Sawyer, tomorrow at 10 on MSNBC.
It's often said
that in the final analysis, about 90% of being the President of the United States is dealing with the unexpected, not with issues that came up in the campaign.
Moderator Jim Lehrer at the first presidential debate, October 3rd, 2000, asking the candidates about their ability to deal with the unexpected, how they would handle a crisis. Al Gore gives a rambling answer about Kosovo and health care. Then it's George W. Bush's turn.
Well, I've been standing up to big Hollywood, big trial lawyers. What was the question? It was about emergencies, wasn't it?
Well, it was about, well, yeah, okay.
You know, as governor, one of the things you have to deal with is catastrophe. It's time to test your mettle. It's the time to test your heart when you see people whose lives have been turned upside down. That's what governors do. Governors are oftentimes found on the front line of catastrophic situations.
As president, George W. Bush was at first spared from having to be on the front line of catastrophic situations. Then came September 11th, 2001, and a catastrophe like no other in American history. 1 year and 4 days after that debate, President Bush took action as commander-in-chief.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. The battle is now joined on many fronts. We will not waver. We will not tire. We will not falter. And we will not fail.
George W. Bush was elected president with less than half the popular vote. The country was divided. But September 11th, 2001 changed everything. The president began this country's war on terrorism with the overwhelming support of the American people, and he would need it. I'm Brian Williams. We'll leave you with this: a presidential visit to Chicago 2 weeks after the attack, and a stop at a neighborhood restaurant. The lunchtime crowd spontaneously seems to sum up how all of America feels.
God!